Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and Boker Tov. Especially a shekoach to our Chazan. Thank you so much for everything that you do. I've had a chance now to watch you for a while, Chazan. You get a lot done. And we have a lot ahead as the Yamim Noraim are bearing down on us. We're looking forward to them very, very much. At least I know I am. So we're looking forward to it all. The parasha for this Shabbat is called Parashat Eikev. And it opens with what is, for me at least, a very fascinating verse, a pasuk. V'haya ekev tishme'un et hamishpatim ha'ele, u'shmartem v'asitem otam, v'shamar Adonai Elohecha lecha et habrit ve'et hachesed asher nishba la'avotecha. Do I need to translate? Okay, I will. I'll do it in Canadian, though. And if or when you obey these statutes and observe them carefully, the Lord your God will faithfully maintain with you the covenant that God swore as an eternal oath to your forebears. So the word Eikev, which gives our parasha its name, in the plainest sense means something akin to the English word because, or maybe more accurately, on account of. The Torah is setting up for us a very simple and basic rubric, and it's one that I think we should consider. God will abide by the terms of the covenant of the Brit, forged with our ancestors long ago, for one simple reason, Eikev, because we continue to obey God's commandments. It's a simple, what we call quid pro quo. You do what you're supposed to do, and God will do what God is supposed to do. But Rashi, the great biblical exegete and winemaker, borrowing from the Midrash as he was wont to do, he notes that the word Eikev is related to a word in Hebrew that some of us know. It is akev. I'm looking for the Israelis, which means the heel of one's foot. And we know it, of course, from the Torah, from before. Remember, Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our patriarch, was so named Yaakov because he was ochez ba'akev. He was holding on to the heel of his older brother as they emerged from the birth canal. And Rashi says something very interesting. He says, this teaches us that we should observe the mitzvot that people trample with their heels. They trample them with their heels. But which are those mitzvot, you might be asking? I'm so glad you asked. The commandments that are treated so shabbily, there are many possible answers. One answer is that the trodden mitzvot are the chukim, and chukim are the kinds of commandments for which there is no available rationale, right? They don't make logical sense necessarily. Or perchance these chukim are trampled underfoot because they are counter-cultural mitzvot. What does that mean? They are counterintuitive. They create a dissonance with the values that we hold dear in this country at this time, the ethos or the way of life of the people amongst whom we live, and so we're supposed to keep them and not trample them, even though they don't make a lot of sense to us in our contemporary reality. And which are those mitzvot for which God promises a very special reward? Maybe the parasha is referring to the mitzvot that we step over. And we step over them not because we don't love Judaism and not because we don't love Torah, but rather because this particular detail or these particular details of Jewish law, they feel like, to use a term that some of you know, a bridge too far. It just makes no sense at all. Why are we doing this? I can understand doing things that make sense, but why should I participate in something that requires that I suspend disbelief? I think the Torah is reminding us that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is only green in the yards where people tend to the grass. I say this as a new homeowner about to invest more money than God should know in grass for the front of my yard on Beaverbrook. And I think what we understand here is something fantastic. The more we invest our time and our energy, or utilizing the term utilized in Pirkei Avot, in the ethics of the ancestors, lefum tsa'ara agra. According to the exertion is the reward. It's what we call in sports the sweat equity. The more you sweat, the more you get. The Torah's promise is that the more we engage with God's mitzvot, with the commandments, in a conscientious way, in an aware way, the greater will be our existential benefit. And if we internalize this notion about the mitzvot, it becomes an invitation for a connection in a way that otherwise we might not have to the numinous, to the divine. It is an opportunity for elevated transcendence, I think. The more we come to realize that the mitzvah we step over could possibly be the mitzvah that we needed and the world needs, the more we take a perilous path. The more that we are conscious, the more that we're aware, the more that we're sensitive, the more we will receive untold blessings. I have to say that for many of us, we're at that period of time, particularly for those of us who are Klei Kodesh, which is a fancy way to say clergy. For those of us who are clergy, we're thinking an awful lot about the high holiday season. Us and people like Rena. That's all we're thinking about. How do we get the hundreds and thousands of people who want to make their way into our building and have it ready, and have it pristine, have it ready for the holidays? For those of us who are preparing material to teach and to preach and to sing, we're very worried about what are we going to say, what are we going to do, what are we going to share that will move the hearts and spirits of people. Look, I have to tell you, I've been here now 6 weeks, and it's wonderful to see so many people coming to shul, but there could be more. There should be more. I know everybody's at the lake. I understand everybody's at the lake. And they're davening at the lake, I understand, which is fantastic. Some of them are davening early, some of them are davening late, but many of them are davening. So the point is that the high holidays are near. And that should make us tremble a little bit. And Parashat Eikev posits that we can enter the days of awe not guilt-ridden. That's not what it's all about, despite the fact of what your bubby or your mother will tell you. It's not a time for the awful. It's a time for the awesome. Because Yontif gives us an opportunity to view the world in new ways. We should see this time not as a time for och and vei, for beating our breasts only, but rather for something else. And I want to introduce it now, and you'll hear it amongst the first to hear it. When we clap on our chests, we say, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, we've done all these terrible things, and there are people who are really good specialists at the cardiac beating here. But I want to invite you to do something else, and we'll introduce it on Yontif. Rather than say Ashamnu, we're also going to say Ahavnu, we have loved. Rather than say that we have rejected Bagadnu, we're going to say we've done all kinds of wonderful things. There'll be not only the confession of the things that we didn't do right, but all the things that we did do right. Because we all know, and the psychologists will tell us, that for every critique that we have of our children, of ourselves, of our spouses, we should have 6 opportunities for us to say nice things. And only after you say 6 nice things can you say something negative. We should see this time, this season, not as awful, but rather as awesome in particular. Because it gives us a chance to think about something. To think about that which we missed, that which we discarded, that which we offhandedly and capriciously decided to cast to the side and say it's not important. And we can do so not with a sense of guilt, but rather with a sense of opportunity. And we don't want to miss that opportunity, because missed opportunities are very sour and very bitter. Parashat Eikev, and this time on the Jewish calendar, remind us to think deeply about the practices that we might have discarded to the dustbin of our own history, and to think of them once again, even though they've been overlooked, and bring them back. And not only bring back those practices, but think about the people that we have discarded as well. Bring those relationships back to the fore. Maybe we haven't spoken with our brother or our sister for a period of time. Maybe we haven't reached out to our parents or our grandparents. Maybe there are extended members of the family. This is Winnipeg. Everybody is related to everybody. And let us use this as an opportunity to pay a little bit more attention, to open our eyes and see, to open our hearts and feel. And so, as soon enough, the month of Elul, the precursor to the high holidays, will arrive. Let us think of the mitzvot that we have stepped over, along with the relationships we have neglected and overlooked. Not from a place of guilt and not from a place of dread, but rather as opportunities to practice a new kind of Yiddishkeit, a new kind of Judaism, one that is ever more consequential, one that is ever more meaningful, one that we will be able to bring into our hearts and into our homes, into the lives of our friends, our family, and our community. And I ask you to join me as we say together, Amen.